For your nightly news, I'm Katie Couric. With us this evening, we have 3 of the 4 Gospel writers, also known as the Synoptic Gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. As you may notice, John is not with us tonight, although he is one of the Gospel writers. However, his writings are not part of the recent controversy surrounding the Gospels, and his PR people didn't get back in touch with him. So guys, as I'm sure you all know, there's some recent controversy surrounding your Gospel writings. You all write about the life of Jesus Christ, the death, the resurrection, but there's different time periods and the details are a little different. Any insight as to that? Matthew?
Well, Katie, we don't consider it a controversy at all. You have to understand what we're trying to achieve with our writings. First of all, it's helpful to understand that synoptic literally means seen with the same eye. The 3 of us here today shared a similar style in our presentation of the story of Jesus. We had the same sequence of events, the same sayings of Jesus, and in some cases we even used the same words. The most important thing to realize out of everything we're talking about is that our objective was not so much to record every little detail of every little event that occurred in Jesus' life. It was more important for us to convey the meaning of those events.
Very interesting, Matthew. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, here's where we get into some of the variations in our accounts. As separate accounts of Jesus' life are presented by different witnesses, each with his own unique perspective, the combined accounts of all these perspectives give us more of a complete story of what really happened in Jesus' life. This is what happens when police investigate a crime scene, and they try to gather as much information as they can from as many different sources, and then try to piece the whole story together by putting together all these different accounts from their various biases. There are 2 points that I'd like to make further. One thing you have to realize is that each of us writers had a different perspective that was influenced by our own personal history. And secondly, each of us was writing to a different congregation, so we used words and images that were specifically appropriate to that particular congregation so that they'd understand what we were talking about. And that accounts for some of the variations that you see in our story.
Mark, would you like to offer any insight?
That's correct. I was close friends with Peter, who you remember as the first pope. Now, my gospel was written for the early members of Peter's church, those brave Roman Christians who were persecuted and killed for their faith. Peter knew me very well, and he didn't over-elaborate. He just gave me the facts. And what's more is he remained very truthful about his own shortcomings, such as when he denied the Christ 3 times after Jesus was arrested. Now, many of these stories are firsthand, as I was a disciple of Jesus. My gospel is the shortest, but it's full of hope. Peter and I wanted to use it to give the early members of his faith something to look forward to, so they would know the pain and suffering they were enduring wasn't for nothing. To do this, I focused on the miracles. I didn't get into the birth or the genealogy. I figured Matthew had that under control, and I didn't want to be redundant. But I knew that the miracles and the resurrection story were what would bring Peter's people hope. I would hope that, in the end, this gospel could be a source of inspiration not only to Peter's diocese, but to Christians now, especially those who are suffering.
Thank you, Mark. Luke, how does your gospel compare?
Well, Katie, unlike Mark and Matthew here, I actually wasn't with the original disciples at the time.
Poser.
My friend St. Paul gave me most of my details for my gospel, and it actually wasn't written until 50 years after the death and resurrection of Christ. In fact, the latter part of my gospel was written to the Romans who were holding St. Paul captive at the time, in hopes to show that they had nothing to fear from Jesus. And the fact that I wasn't there, I made an extra effort to make sure all my information was correct, that I had the whole complete story. So I talked to multiple people, not just Paul. I talked exclusively to Jesus' mother, Mary, and you can see her influence in my gospel. I used her genealogy throughout my gospel, and that wasn't because I just talked to her. It's because it better fit who I was writing my gospel for. My focus is on the Gentile Christians, so I wasn't too concerned with the Old Testament or the Jewish history of Jesus, but rather the Immaculate Conception and the virgin birth. My gospel is more like the modern day autobiography. It is very well researched. It is well balanced between the miracle of Jesus and his teachings, and is very easy to read. It is not just a story. It is not just my experiences. It is the truth as investigated and told to me by those who experienced it.
Wow, thanks, Luke. Matthew, do you have anything else to add?
My background as a tax collector gave me an understanding of attention to details and appreciation for numbers. Also, as a Jew, I was able to appreciate the understanding that my Jewish audience had for the Old Testament. So you'll find a lot of Old Testament references in my writings. I might also mention that all my accounts were put into writing within the first 5 years. Luke.
Wow, guys, it's really amazing how much each of y'all reveal about the life of Jesus Christ. But guys, I don't want our viewers to think about just the differences between y'all's Gospels. There's some similarities, right?
Absolutely, Katie. Our Gospels were all verbalized in Aramaic and then later translated into Greek.
Except for mine, which I originally wrote in Hebrew.
And we all agreed on the importance of one miracle, right?
That's right, even John has it in his gospel.
And we all included the miracle of the loaves and fishes.
Plus, we shared a perspective on the resurrection.
Wow, guys, I think you really answered the controversy. It's really amazing how each of y'all can offer a different perspective about the life of Jesus Christ. You all experience the same thing, but we're writing at different times and to different audiences. I think, in my opinion, it doesn't really affect the validity or credibility of your writings. It actually offers a deeper understanding when you read all three of y'all's writings together. I think only then can we truly understand who Jesus Christ really is.
All of us are unified in our desire that people will read our Gospels and choose to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Christ.
Thanks again, guys. This was great, really. Come again anytime. For your nightly news, I'm Katie Couric. Be safe, and I miss you guys!